If we want the economy to grow long term, if we want affordability, we need to use more energy and get it at a cheaper price. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. How are we going to get not just more energy, but cheaper? Well, in this case here, we are talking about nuclear energy. When we break it down, you got to look at this from a top down, okay? Understand that nuclear for a period of time was very popular, started to gain popularity, and then it really had its last leg right at Fukushima. Now, a lot has changed over the years. There's a lot new technology. So the old stuff from 40 years ago, it's very different from what we have today. That's based on my limited research of nuclear. Now, you look around the world and see that some countries do it, some countries don't. Other places like that they can really use geothermal, or they because they're in Iceland, or they can use solar because they live in the desert. That is a different circumstance from some place where they are highly reliant. For instance, in Europe, they were highly reliant on the energy coming from Russia, and they built all these pipelines. They said this is going to be our energy source. And instead, they started shutting down all the nuclear and saying, we don't want that anymore. We got this thing over here. It's working great. But then what happened? Well, of course, you see what the issue is. You lock out Russia from delivering all that natural gas to you, all those resources to you, you run into the problem. So now what we have here are countries basically starting to sign on to nuclear. This is bullish for uranium. I have been talking about uranium since 2020, repeatedly, over and over and over again. And all those who have listened, who have bought it and made money off it, I congratulate you. Kudos on that. I'm talking here today mainly about that. We'll get into some other resources. First thing, here we go. Andrew Evans, embracing nuclear energy is Canada's clearest path to net zero. So no, what was happening before was like wind, solar, whatever, all these things that they would say, hey, we got to get net zero, we got to be carbon neutral, all this stuff. You could be on one side of the equation or the other, doesn't matter. The countries are going for it. Most of the countries are going for it. And how are they actually going to get there? Well, it's going to be using nuclear. It's going to be a mixture, there's no question, but nuclear is the one, because they even have modular nuclear where we can put it into a place where it's not necessarily in the core or something, or like hydro. So in this case here, we're talking about Ontario, and this is an example. This article is written about that. Ontario has nuclear, Ontario has hydro. Okay, they got both. They are producing a lot of energy, okay? A lot of energy, more than they need. But of course, it's still expensive, obviously. Ontario gets between 50 to 60% of its power from nuclear. You don't hear that too often, right? And we're talking about millions and millions of people. And so, by the way, and that nuclear plant in Pickering did leak radioactive waste into Lake Ontario, the drinking water, which they did not clean up. They said it was not a problem. But what we have here is an issue that you got to look at it. We need more energy. How are we going to advance? Well, we need to use more energy. That's a fact. All this AI stuff, I'll talk about that in a sec, but it uses more energy. Okay, we have new technologies that use more energy. We need that, but we can't do it with coal and all this stuff because they're bankrupting coal. They're saying, hey, this is bad. And so as a result of that, you are going to need to do something clean. You're going to have to use something clean, or we're going to tax you. And so nuclear is going to be that one. You're seeing it already. It's time to buy the dip in nuclear and uranium ETFs. I didn't even see a dip. Apparently there was one. And so they're telling you right here, Bank of America, saying, hey, buy the dip. Well, I don't know about that. I'm not going to tell people to buy or not to buy, but just look at the insatiable demand from governments. Looking at nuclear, well, what happens here? You got uranium that is the one that is the beneficiary of this. When we talk about companies, it could be Cameco. That's the one I've been talking about since 2020, only because it's the biggest, not because of any particular factor. And then there's also the Sprott Physical. So you can kind of get a bit of both in there, okay, as an investor. Goldman Sachs boosts physical uranium trades amid soaring prices. So Goldman Sachs is doing it. They're getting into it. All right. That was from, February, but that's the case, right? They realize that the demand is there and they want to have exposure to it. I thought this would be interesting. I'll show you reserves of other things as well, but I wanted to show you the uranium reserves before we move on. Looking around the world, okay, Canada has a lot of uranium. So imagine they could potentially get that uranium, all right, power all of everything they need to in their own country with their own resources. Will they do that? Probably not, okay? But that's a different story. And Australia has a mass quantity of that. Will they be able to actually pull it out and use it? We'll see. Kazakhstan, of course, has a lot as well, and Russia too, okay? So there's that chart for you. You could see this. I thought it was, something to connect share of the world's forests by country. Right? Brazil is massive, but look, who's even bigger? It's Russia. Yes, absolutely. And you could see that around the world, all these different countries. This is a resource that we need a lot of for different things. We need it for furniture and paper and everything you could imagine. So when these countries have this, they have an advantage. They could produce for themselves. Great for self-sufficiency and so on. And you don't need to rely on other countries. Like the United States produces a lot of oil now. Will that continue? I don't know, but that's what they're doing. That's a good thing. That's a positive thing. All right. Here we have it, top 11 countries by gold reserves. How do we trust it all? I don't know, because the U.S. is at the top of the list, even though, funny enough, I was talking with the Finance Friday crew, and it was funny. The previous secretary, Treasury Secretary, Stephen Munchkin, Little Munchkin actually tweeted the tweet that he put out. I'm going to butcher it, but it was, "Glad gold is safe." Glad gold is safe. He went there, maybe. They said he was going to go. And the tweet was, "Glad gold is safe." Didn't really do any auditing, though, and didn't really mention what gold. Yeah. Anyway, point is, there are reserves somewhere. Where are they? I'm not sure. AI is taking water from the desert. This article is just talking about the usage, how, all these servers, they need to be cooled. And so you need to use that. And as a result of this, it's basically taking from that groundwater. Who knows what they're doing with it? Nobody ever knows. But of course, if you're Microsoft, you're going to be able to get a pass. There's no question about it. You can do whatever the heck you want. Exxon threatens to take billions out of dollars in climate investment out of the EU. I think what's happening now is a lot of this so-called green or ESG type stuff, companies are saying, look, I just don't want anything to do with that. We're done with that. Investors are not liking it anymore. They renamed it. Same exact thing. They just renamed it. But this is one company who obviously doesn't want anything to do with that. They are saying, hey, we're not going to play ball. All right. And then we have this. Cocoa panic. World's largest chocolatier plans 19% workforce cut as prices hit record highs. So resources all around. And the point here is that they can create artificial scarcity. They can create a surge in prices. It's no different than OPEC. Oh, we want the price to be at $100 a barrel? No problem. We'll just cut our production. These things happen. So keep an eye on any particular resource. We are pulling it out of the ground at one rate, and we're using it at another rate. So that is an extremely important metric for any commodity that you look at. You got to know how much is being dug up at any time, how much is actively being used, and I would also look at any tariffs that are involved here, because if, China's pulling a lot of that out of the ground, but then there's a 25% tariff on top of that, well, maybe it's not worth it to go to China. That's the whole point of the tariffs. Maybe maybe not there. Maybe I'll go here. Okay. So keep that in mind all the time. All that information, of course, is publicly available. If you want to be a part of the Finance Friday, I hope that you'll join. Right now, we got this great group. It's a small group. Don't think that, you got to be on the Zoom. You don't even have to put your face on there. Some people don't show their face. Some people do. I appreciate everybody being there regardless. And I want you to be one of those. If you're interested in the details, hit that link in the description. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button on the way out, because when you do, you're supporting the channel. You're notifying the algorithm that this guy still exists. All right. I want to see you tomorrow. Take care.